and welcome just to family. This is our mini episode. So welcome to our mini episode date. We are talking today about emotional eating and how it can really do a lot of damage in your life when you are emotionally eating. So today's episode is sponsored by a Phoenix Identity. They are offering you a clarity session because, well, when you're emotionally eating, there's probably something going on in your life that you're not happy about, and we'll help you get to the bottom of that and figure out what that is. So link in the description, go take a look at that. They're offering you that clarity session. Sign up for that and start getting a little bit of clarity on what's going on in your life and why you are emotionally eating, which is damaging your health. So in that light, please like, follow, and share the show at justalivetv.com. Sign up for our newsletter to know that when we are launching new mini episodes, our live stream, as well as our Just a blog. So do that at justalivetv.com. Follow us on our various social media accounts and get in touch. We're always looking for guest co-hosts, guest speakers, guest bloggers, and of course, future topics. So today, I'm Melissa Krechler. Of course, most of you know that already. I'm your host of Just Alive TV, but I'm going to hand it over to Paula Yolles, and I hope I pronounced that properly.
You got it perfect.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
So you got my name perfectly. Thanks, Melissa, for having me. I'm Paula Yolles, and I help women release emotional eating so that they can step into having a peaceful relationship with food, their bodies, and themselves. And I'm the founder of the End Emotional Eating with Ease method. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the number one cause of emotional eating?
Well, the first word, emotional. So we have to eat, we have to have food, and it has lots of different layers that are complicated. Everybody has some kind of little push-pull with food in their lives, no matter how you grew up, where you live, because it is just, there's just complications around it. Your mom told you to eat everything on your plate, or maybe your dad or some adult you live with, that you have to eat your salad first. That was a thing in my household, growing up. So there's just layers put on. And so that's part of it, the patterns and habits and things that happen in your family when you're growing up. And so that creates patterns. And then there's, for a lot of the women I work with, it's really all the women I work with, it's the emotional piece, that something in their lives along the way, they needed to figure out how to soothe themselves because something wasn't being provided for them in their lives growing up with their families or in their situations, not feeling heard or being people pleasers. And so then the soothing of food is what they turned to. And it's not their fault. When you're little, you have to figure out the best tools you can do to cope with your situation that you're living in. And so food is often, not always, readily available for people who end up being emotional eaters. And so they ended up soothing themselves because they didn't know how to do it in another way when they were younger, often. And then that just became a pattern that has been around for years or decades even, and it's hard to bust through it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that it is true. Emotional eating is self-soothing. It's like any other form of addiction, right? We become addicted to, or we look for different ways to cope, process, and just live with the emotions that we're feeling. And a lot of times that tends to gravitate more towards addiction, self-harm, anything along those lines. But emotional eating can be just as bad, because you're emotional eating, you're gaining weight. If you're trying to lose weight and you're yo-yo dieting, like we had talked about in the pre-screening, that can just cause so many things. But then there's also the shame and the guilt behind emotional eating. And see, that's where I come in, right? Is that shame and that guilt? Because number one, what's causing you to emotionally eat in the first place? What are you trying to soothe? What emotion or feeling or thought process is bringing you down that road consistently where you feel the need to emotionally eat. But secondly is, just why do it, right? I know women who diet and they go to the gym and they diet and they're beautiful and their body is perfect for them, right? For them, because there is no perfect body style.
Exactly.
But it's for them. And yet at the same time, they deny themselves everything that they want, right? Dieting. So here's one of the things that I've noticed is dieting, you again with the yo-yo diet, right? So you go on this diet, you're yo-yoing up and down, you're denying yourself the things that you really want to eat, and then you get upset, or your depression rears, or your anxiety rears, your panic rears, and whatever's causing that trigger, you emotionally eat to self-soothe, and you binge, right? And it's eating an entire bag of Oreos or whatever it may be, and then you feel sick after, not just physically sick, but emotionally sick from the shame and the guilt and just gross. You're just feeding a pattern of self-hatred.
Yeah, that happens for a lot of women. You're right on target. And then there's a whole other group of women who have the same emotional shame and blame, but they're not necessarily going to the gym and working out, and they're not necessarily denying themselves certain foods. They eat whatever kind of foods they want, and but there's a whole shame and blame constantly going on. And while they're eating one meal, they're already thinking about the next meal, and their brain is just constantly on the food. And and some of them have tried diets, some of them haven't, but it's the constant pull to food to soothe the emotions that they haven't figured out how to process from their past. Or sometimes things are coming in the present too, like you said, like something triggers your anxiety or your depression, or just it's a high stress time, so that you don't know how to deal with it. So that's the thing of getting underneath, because you can try 500 different ways of eating, all different ways of exercising, and it works for a little while and then it doesn't work. Or you, like you said, like somebody could have a body that's just right for them. Somebody could have a body that is considered like a model's body, quote unquote, like, that's changing, luckily, what a model looks like, which is fabulous. But in what our brains associate, the skinny model, you can be super skinny and still have the same shame and blame going on inside of your brain. It has nothing actually to do with the size and shape of your body. It has all to do with what's going on inside your brain. And that's, for me, that's where, because I used to be deep down in the hole of emotional eating. I used to have additional weight on. Excuse me, let's take a sip of water. I used to be deep down in the whole emotional eating, and I had extra weight on, but I wasn't trying to like actually lose the weight. I was just trying to feel better emotionally. I had a huge negative mind chatter. Some people might call it anxiety. I call it negative mind chatter. It just like, I couldn't get it to stop. And then when I hopped into giving myself permission to be like, okay, I'm going to look deeper. And I signed up to work with a coach for 2 years. And I went in for my own healing to learn. And he held the space in the container for me to dive into my emotions. And I had a lot of health problems. Like you said, like, that most emotionally, not all, a lot of emotional leaders have extra weight on their body, and it impacts things. It impacts your health. It impacts your knees, it can impact one thing. So I was having chronic health stuff. I had actually had like chronic digestive stuff since I was little. And when I started working on actually dealing with my emotions, my chronic digestive health stuff slowly got better and went away. So it just really does impact on so many levels. One of my recent clients, she's been having problems with her hip. And so we've been doing releasing of emotions stuck around her family situation from the past and healing that. And her hip is feeling better, and she's starting to have a more peaceful relationship with food, things that have been going, and it's just mind blowing that you wouldn't think your hip pain would go away without actually like going to the PT or doing exercises. But it's powerful. Releasing the emotions that are literally stuck in our bodies.
That might actually be why my hip's bugging me. But the amount of family drama I'm going through right now, is might be. But it is and all joking aside, and I'm not even joking. My hip does hurt the last few days, right?
I didn't think you were joking.
No, but all comedy aside, I guess, is that was satire comedy because I'm truthful family drama. It does. Your food, your emotions and your food do go hand in hand. We've done a few episodes on the fact that a lot of our neuroreceptors are in our gut. And so depending on what we're eating, how we're eating, if you are emotional, not emotional in a negative sense, but if you're emotionally eating, then your stomach's going to know that and crave things that aren't good for you, right? You're not going to want the healthier food. You're not going to want a more balanced diet, not even healthier food, but a balanced diet. Because I don't think there's necessarily a diet that you're supposed to have. I think we're all supposed to just balance everything and say, oh, instead of having, a handful of chips, I'm going to have a cucumber, right? And I still get the great crunch. FYI, for anybody watching, those mini cucumbers are really awesome. And you just grab one, wash it, and start eating it. It's great. That's our
and if you sprinkle a little, like once you're taking the first bite, sprinkle a little salt on it so it sticks. It's giving you that salty that you would give with the chip and the crunch. So
my son's girlfriend eats it with soy sauce, but she'll do like soy sauce and a little bit of soy sauce and a little bit of brown sugar, and she dips it in. And it's actually not that bad. I tried it the other day. It's not that bad. It's not. It's basically like eating teriyaki
cucumbers.
A little bit.
So
But again, it's finding those choices, right? And knowing.
Yeah.
I think for me, the first part of it is acknowledgement, right? For myself, and I'm gonna say myself because I drink Pepsi 24/7. I eat whatever I want, whenever I want. I have digestive issues. I have health issues, right? I'm not the healthiest of people. My mindset's great, and I'm happy, and everybody stresses. So yeah, of course I go through my own stress, but at the same time, it's it is, I do need to eat healthier, right? And I know that I don't feel shame or blame for not eating healthier, but I definitely, sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, I really need to do something about that. But again, it all depends. I gained a ton of weight when I was living in northern Alberta, and even when I moved here, I gained even more weight, and it was just because being stuck, right? Feeling stuck, not even physically being stuck, but feeling stuck. We lived on an acreage, and I felt stuck in that location. I never wanted to go anywhere or do anything because I felt like I was trapped. Coming back home to Winnipeg, where we are now, was, again, we ended up, when we first moved, I was doing trade shows because I do have a product-based business as well. I was doing trade shows. I was going, and I was every weekend I was gone doing trade shows. I was working at, my part-time job, and then COVID hit. And I've been at my computer for the last 2 years. So it is different, right? And that emotional, that, hey, I'm hungry. I'm kind of the opposite. I forget to eat until like 1 or 2, and then I get violently ill. So Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many layers to it, like to any addiction, like you said at the beginning. And I think a lot of people don't really realize there is a layer of addiction to food. And there's two layers, in my opinion. There's foods that are literally created to be addictive by the food processing industries. And right. And so of course you're going to want more of those. Like they've literally created it so that you're addicted to it, just like cigarettes. Like it's the exact same, type of thing, right? You can let go of cigarettes. You don't have to smoke to live. You have to eat to live, just like we have to breathe to live. So there's this piece where and then the second piece besides that is the addiction of the emotion. Like there's the soothing. There can be a high from what you're eating sometimes. Like chocolate's my thing, like my go-to thing. Like I tend to eat what's healthier, quote unquote, chocolate, but it's still chocolate. It's still giving me that caffeine, that emotional boost in my brain. So there's this balance of trying to piece it all and figure out, like, what are the little shifts I can make in my food and what are the shifts I can peel off in my emotions so that I don't have to go to food to self-soothe. And it's a balance. Most of the women I work with, they actually know what healthy eating is. I think most of us do. And there's this whole thing with the diet mentality, all or nothing. You're either on a diet or you're off a diet. You're either on the latest quote unquote healthy way of eating, whether it's keto, vegan, paleo, whatever, right? Because those don't necessarily have to be considered diets. Those can be considered lifestyle ways of eating, Whole30, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're either on it or off it mentality. And that creates self-sabotage and crash and burn mentality because it's like, oops, uh-oh, all right, F it eating now because I had, that little slice of cake and then I'm off of it and I'm done. And you just spiral down from there. And so I like the idea of the added in method where you slowly add in things you enjoy eating. Like you said, you enjoy like the little cucumbers. I'm just using that as an example since, it's like you add in healthy things you enjoy eating and make slow, steady changes instead of being like, okay, I'm starting this new way of eating or this new diet tomorrow. And it's really stressful to have to be like, I'm totally changing all my way of eating. I can't go out in the rest of the world necessarily and eat with ease. But I've found for myself personally, and then with my clients, when you do the added in method and you slowly change things, add in things healthy that you enjoy eating, you have more peace with it and you can make it sustainable long term. It just becomes a lifestyle.
And I'm big on the one moment, one choice. You don't have to diet all the time. How often do we eat? 6 to 8 times a day, right? Depending on the person, 4 to 6 times, 4 to 8 times a day, depending on the person. Any amount of time you eat is probably fine, depending on as long as it's not once a day. Once or twice a day is not good enough. But when you eat, when you go to eat, you make a choice of what you're going to eat. It's one choice, right?
That's right.
You're not making that choice all day, every day. You're not, like, if you chose to diet, you're not dieting 24/7. You're dieting 8 times a day, right? It's the mentality behind it. So if you go to have a snack or you go to have a meal and you say, okay, what do I feel like eating? Right? What does my body feel like eating? On top of that, what do I feel like eating? Am I emotionally eating? You can start asking yourself questions before you eat on, what choice am I going to make? And if you decide, hey, you know what, I've eaten a pretty decent amount of healthy stuff. I want a small bowl of chips. Then have it, right? But ask yourself before you eat, Am I eating this because I really want it, or am I eating this to self-soothe? Am I eating this because I want to diet, or am I eating this because I truly enjoy it? Right? There are healthy foods we enjoy. We've tricked our brain not to enjoy them, right? There's foods I refuse to eat. I will not eat many forms of seafood, and I will not eat mushrooms. You cannot, not going to happen. I don't even like the smell of them. Um, but again, but I'll eat cucumbers and I'll eat peppers and I love broccoli. Broccoli's like my favorite vegetable. Um, but it depends, right? Where my oldest now will try anything, right? So if you've got picky kids, my oldest will try absolutely anything. He tried calamari the other day.
Wow.
And sent me a picture of it. And I'm like, oh no, no. But again, yeah, like I understand, going back to the beginning of the video where you mentioned, what our parents do. I ask my kids every meal, right? Like there's stuff that I know they won't eat. I know they won't eat chili, right? I know they're not going to eat it. So when I'm making chili, I'll make them something else. But if I'm making something that there's no reason in my brain why they shouldn't like it, because it's pasta, chicken, and whatever, then I'm going to sit it down and they'll be like, I don't want to eat it. I said, you have to try it, right? You at least have to try.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, I'll make the same thing. I really don't want to try it again, right? And it's just getting them to know that it's okay to try different things, right? I've caught my own children when they are bored, right? Because that's a huge one for kids. If they're bored, I'm hungry, right?
Yeah.
My youngest daughter is going through a growth spurt right now, and she's hungry all the time, but she's thinning. Like I can see that she's thinning, and I think it's because, again, she's growing, right?
Yeah.
So for children, there's different needs at different times, right? There is the emotional eating, absolutely, the self-soothing. You think of babies. When we have babies, we give them a soother or a pacifier when they're crying, right? It's that eating motion that soothes them. So we are conditioned from birth to be soothed with food.
We are. And then it's just when it tips over into a place where it becomes consuming in a woman's life or a man, or it becomes consuming in your life, and it starts impacting your health, possibly your emotions, because like we know, like you said, our emotions so impact our whole body health. We understand that more and more every day. And so that's the piece that I think needs to be honored, is to looking at them, your emotional pieces, because yes, we learn certain patterns with our parents around, like, okay, you have to eat your whole salad before you eat the rest of your dinner, or and I think that's great that you do that. You have to give it a try when it's something that's in their realm of what they like to eat. But there's lots of just things where sneak in that we don't even realize sneaked in. Like one of my clients, she had a stomach ache as an adult every time she ate, even when she was eating the healthiest meal, and she just couldn't figure it out. And as we were doing the emotional work, peeling the layers around things that had gone on in her family, we uncovered that her brother, when she was growing up, her brother would tease her and her sister at the table when they ate family meals every time. And so she would rush through eating and get a stomach ache because she wanted to get away from the table. And she hadn't even realized that she was still in that emotional, like it got literally just started trapped in her brain and in her body physically, and would give her a stomach ache. And so when we were able to peel that, release it, and honor it, she was able to slow down and know that her brother wasn't going to be teasing her anymore. He wasn't even at the table. So, so there's just a lot of ways it sneaks in. So I just think of women, and I just say women because that's the population I work with and support as a food freedom coach. But I just want to, say, like, find a way to support your emotions. You deserve to honor yourself, and you deserve to be seen, and figure out how to support yourself. It's not your fault if you're an emotional eater. And there's just layers to uncover, because you deserve to be healthy and shine bright.
Yep. So what, I know that we've mentioned a couple tips and tricks to emotional eating, but let's recap them before we sign off. Let's recap them. So we have, avoiding emotional eating, which is easier said than done. But stopping yourself and asking yourself whether or not you're eating because of an emotion, or because of you want to, or you enjoy it. So that for me would be the biggest thing, is just taking a pause before you eat and saying, okay, just check in with yourself and your body before you eat, or before you make a meal, and really just feel into that meal.
And when you feel yourself being pulled to emotional eating, or even in the middle of it and you realize it, to stop and figure out what emotion is going on, so that, and then how you can find other strategies to soothe yourself and support yourself around that emotion, instead of with food.
What other ones would you like to highlight?
I think that it's not like a tip per se, but really knowing it's not your fault, and that there is a way out to support yourself, whether you do it yourself or you figure out to find somebody to support you through it, so that it doesn't keep going on and impacting your life in a way that doesn't feel good, so you can get out of the shame and blame, and so that your health can feel better.
Yeah. One of the quotes I coined a while ago was, our emotions create our reality, but our mindset creates our emotions. Mm-hmm. So really just understanding your mindset, your, like, what reality are you creating based on, your emotions and your thoughts and your beliefs, and getting to the bottom of that, and understanding why, right? Why it matters, whether it's a belief that you created, whether it's a belief that was instilled in you while you were, in your formative years, and just really understanding again. And I agree with you that it isn't a blame or a shame or a fault. It's where you're at, and that's okay, right? Because it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be experiencing whatever it is that you're experiencing, and knowing that you're going to be okay through it.
That's right. That you'll be okay, and that there's so many different ways to figure out how to support yourself.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that is the end of this episode. I have loved talking about emotional eating. I'm an eater. One of the things I wanted to mention before we go is there's a difference between emotional eating, and there's a between emotional eating and gaining an emotion when you eat. So there are certain foods that when you eat, if it's a cold, rainy day, if you're feeling down and you have a nice warm bowl of soup, that is totally different. There is an emotion you can receive from eating where it's just the pleasure of eating that food. Soup, like I said, soup when you're not feeling well, soup on a cold day, right? Shepherd's pie in winter, just something warm and feels like it just soothes you the whole way down. And it's the warmth, and it's the love made with the food. Trust me, you can tell when food is made with love.
I agree.
You can tell. I do it all the time. But yeah, so anyway, I forgot I had wanted to mention that there is a difference when you're feeling an emotion because of something that you're eating, whether it's a fond memory, whether it is, just something comforting and soothing. There's a difference between self-soothing and soothing because the food is soothing.
Right. And being present with the food, like when it's a cold day and you're like, oh, I want to have a bowl of soup to warm me up and I'm hungry, and you're being present with it, versus you're eating a bowl of soup and you're not present, you're stuck in thinking about, the stressful thing that just happened, and you're soothing. Yes, exactly. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Melissa.
Very much. You're very welcome. I love doing these episodes. I think that there's so many topics we could talk about on emotions, on eating, just so many things. And I love that that people like you join me on these episodes to talk about important topics that people are struggling with, because there are a lot of people in the world who are struggling with emotional eating. And it is lonely, absolutely lonely.
Yeah.
So for anybody watching, please reach out to myself, reach out to Paula, reach out to somebody in your community. If you want somebody local, talk to your doctor. But if you're emotionally eating, or if you think that you're emotionally eating, reach out to somebody for help, because you don't have to do it alone. You aren't alone. And there's no shame, there's no blame in being in the emotional eating game. I had to do a rhyme there just because it felt good. All right. Well, just a family, this has been your episode on emotional eating. I am, of course, your host, Melissa Krechler. We will, sign up on the website. Sign up on the website for our newsletter at justalivetv.com. You can find Just Alive TV on multiple social media platforms. If you want to keep up to date on our live streams, on our mini episodes, on our blogs, you'd like to see a topic featured, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, you can do so again at justalivetv.com. This particular episode has been sponsored by a Phoenix Identity, who is offering you a clarity session to see what's going on in your life that may be causing emotional eating, unhappiness, and just some really nasty habits. So check them out. Link in the description. All right, Paula, thank you again.
Thank you, Melissa. It was an honor. And I thank you for letting me share and have a conversation with you and your group.
Absolutely. All right, Just a Family. This has been Just Alive TV. I will see all of you on the next episode. Bye.